Hello, Jerry here with Season 5, Episode 42 of Ask Jerry Tachoir. I wanted to do this video last week, but I'm living here in Nashville and we had this horrible ice storm. Over 200,000 people lost their power, we being one of them. We lost power for 4 days and it got very cold. We were in some sub-freezing temperatures and went down to 0 one night. Had a little bit of damage to the house, but anyway, things will get better. It's just been a rough week. So anyway, we're here doing this video now. If you'd like to ask me a question, simply go to my website, which is www.tachoir.com, T-A-C-H-O-I-R. And in the upper right-hand corner is a little contacts tab. Just click on that contacts tab, fill out your name and some information and ask your question, and perhaps we'll do one of these videos. You can also put a comment down below on YouTube. You can ask your question there in that section, and I can get it. But generally, the best way is to go through my website. And we also ask that you go ahead and subscribe to this channel. It helps with the algorithm to get more people to see it and to know it's available and help the Vibes community some. So go ahead. It doesn't cost you anything. It's no big deal. Just click on the subscribe button, and you'll be part of the organization. With that being said, let's go ahead, and our question today comes from Robert in Monte Carlo. I've been there a number of times. A beautiful place and just right on the French River, just gorgeous. Bonjour, Jerry. Hope you are well. Your videos and recordings have been so inspirational. I thank you. I've noticed from your concerts that you don't use pickups. Why and what do you use to amplify the vibes in live concerts? Very curious. Thanks and look forward to your reply. Best, Robert from Monte Carlo. Yeah, Robert, I was probably actually one of the first, and I want to say it was probably back in the early 80s, that had a contact system, a pickup system, and it was made by a guy in Canada. His name was Ray Ayotte. It was called the Ayotte sensor system. And these were little contact mics that glued on the bottom of every one of the bar. And then they would collect, you'd plug them into a metal rail, and this metal rail would gather all the bar information, and then you would plug it into a PA or an amplifier. And when I first got it, I was very excited to be able to compete with, guitar players and people that can play loud. However, I noticed quickly that the sound of the vibes that I was getting wasn't quite what I'm hearing acoustically as I'm standing over the instrument. There was very much an attack to it, like you could hear the attack of the mallet hitting the bar almost as much as you heard the fundamental of the note. And that kind of bothered me. Yeah, I could be louder, but it was just a very processed sound that I wasn't real happy with. So I quit using that system and I actually sold it, and I went back to microphones. Fortunately, I have a relationship with Audio-Technica, and I've been using their condenser microphones, pretty much the Audio-Technica AT4050, I believe they are. Nice microphone, very flat signal. They just sound exactly like what I'm hearing over the vibes when I use these mics and going out to a PA system or actually even a recording. And there's also another one, I believe it's called the 4060s by Audio-Technica, which are their tube microphones, which are really nice and they give a really nice warm signal. So I use those, but any good condenser microphone should suffice for live performances. And again, now condenser microphones need something called phantom power, which is they have to have power to run the microphone. And most modern PA systems have a little button on a phantom power, and you click that and it takes care of the condenser microphones. And that's a really nice way to do it. I guess it was about maybe 15, maybe 20 years ago, maybe even longer than that. There's another company that approached me, and it's the K&K company out of Germany. And so they sent me one of their K&K pickup systems. This one was a little bit better. The one that I have actually has MIDI. And the MIDI, I was kind of excited at first. The MIDI sort of works, but it doesn't work great. In other words, if you don't have anything ringing and you just play notes, it'll send MIDI information and it'll keep up with you pretty well. However, if you play like chords and you have some chords ringing, and if you hit that note again, because that note is vibrating, it won't resend the MIDI information. Now, a lot of times on vibes, you'll have things ringing and you want it to ring, and then you want to hit it again to create another line. So with that being said, again, like I said, it won't resend the MIDI note on a ringing bar. So the MIDI became somewhat useless in that system. But the pickups themselves were better. They were better than the AOT system, and so I used those for a while. And again, I found that it's just an extra thing to deal with. It's an extra thing to carry and be aware of. It's an extra thing. They're very fragile, so you have to take care of the little contact that's on each one of the bars. It's the same as the AOT. It plugs into a rail and goes into a controller at the end where you can control volume and things like that. But they're very fragile, and so you have to be protective, and you always have to have a spare, and you have to have the way of gluing it back on. And I just found that it was just becoming a headache, an extra thing to deal with, and taking them out and being very careful as not to break anything. So I sort of quit using those. Now, if there's a situation that I know that's going to be like I have to play loud and I have to, maybe it's a windy day and the microphones aren't as good on windy days because you hear a lot of the wind going on, then perhaps I will use the K&K system and I'll take that with me. But generally I find that, you know, most of the concerts I do in jazz festivals and things like that, they have a PA system, they have a sound man, they have great microphones, and I'll get 2 microphones, I'll set them up, and you have to remember there's a 3-to-1 rule. For each 1 foot distance from your instrument, the mics need to be separated by 3 feet. So that's so you don't get phasing cancellation issues. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. But other than that, the microphones give me the sound that I'm hearing over the vibes as I'm playing. And if you have a good sound engineer, so be nice to your sound engineers. And if they can EQ it just really nice and they come up and listen to your vibes and go back, and you can get a really good signal with mics, and it just seems to work real well. Yes, mics have some disadvantages in that, you know, the drummer's in back of you, and if your mics are maybe too high, you're going to pick up a lot of drums and a lot of the extra things around it. But you're close enough to the vibes that the vibes will be the predominant thing that gets amplified. You want to try to also keep the mics as close as you can to the instrument without being aware of, like, you don't want to hit them. You don't want to hit them with your mallets, and you don't want to have to think about, oh God, I got the mic, I got to be real careful. You don't want to have that become an issue because then it takes away from your performance. So keep your mics elevated to the point where you know you're not going to hit them, and it allows you to just play, and the microphones do their job and they pick up the music really well, and you're all set. So that's what I do. Robert, I go with the mics now, and it's just a lot easier, a lot less hassle, and it just seems to work for me. So anyway, folks, do ask me some more questions. I'm looking forward. We've got, you know, several more of these we want to do real soon, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you so much, and look forward to your questions. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thank you.